guys, we got the man, the myth, the legend, the Lenok, Michael Lenok from the Knicks podcast.
It's pronounced Lennox, actually.
The Lennox.
The Lennox, yeah.
La Resistance.
La Resistance, you know it. That we're like
all the sayings.
We're like the bad boy outlaw of Knicks Nation, I guess.
Yeah, like they're like you have your people, like you have your chill people, but these guys, they're like, they go full on at you. They are like these are like the, what do you want to call yourself? The Dole intro or what?
I would say we're cynical, maybe. We're cynical Knicks fans. I would go anywhere from realistic to cynical. I used to be the optimist. I used to be like you, Luke. I mean, you remind me. I think it's awesome.
Like phases, yeah.
I think it's awesome what you're doing right now, by the way. How old are you? 13?
Yeah, I'm 13. Got to turn 14 on Monday, actually.
Oh, wow. Happy early birthday, my dude.
Thank you.
No, I think it's awesome what you're doing. Back when I was your age, I mean, there wasn't like podcast shows. I think that's great. There is. I was like a Knicks blogger on websites, like nonstop. I was more optimistic back then, but it's just recent years, the repetition of same mistakes I've watched for, 15 years now. Basically, so I'm 29 years old. So in around 2003, when I was 12, I've always been a diehard Knicks fan. But when you're 7, 8, you're going to the Garden, you're a fan, but you're not like locked in, paying attention to the team. When I was 12 years old, that's when Scott Layden was fired. That's when Isaiah was brought in. That's when the Marbury trade happened, and it kind of
the Steph trade was good. I'm
a Marbury guy through and through. I think that he gets a little bit of a bad rap. I think what killed Marbury was Larry Brown. Oof, that season.
Yeah. So how would you basically say the last 20 years as? And it's been horrible, basically.
Dumpster fire.
Yeah, and what do you think was the Knicks' biggest mistake of the last 20 years?
Eddie Curry trade, easily for me.
Yeah. And yeah, like I know that you're really like you've gone after Phil, you've gone after the Roach, Steve Mills, as you call him.
Yeah. The Roach, because they say a cockroach is the only creature that would survive a nuclear war. And essentially that's what Steve Mills has done. He still is on the board right now. He will survive anything that comes with the Knicks. He'll fail upwards, as they say.
Yeah. So, and what would you have done in the last 20 years, transitioning all the way from the Ewing era to now? What would have you done? Well, it could go anyway. It's been like, it's 20 years. It's like tons of things could happen in 20 years.
Well, all right. So if I got to be honest with myself and like honestly check and reflect myself, I was, like I said, I was young and I was excited when they brought in Isaiah and Marbury. I was used to the Knicks being good. My childhood was a little different from yours. I mean, I'm sure you kind of had those mellow years.
I had the Knicks tape.
Knicks tape, the mellow years. For me, that was like the 90s. I'd go to the Garden and everything was fantastic. And you were just used to go New York, go New York, go. The starting lineup intro. I get chills every time. I'm still, that's why even though I'm pessimistic, like I can't stop being a fan because I'm so deeply attached to it. I was, I was the type of dude in high school, like if there was a party that night, but it was February and the Knicks were playing the Milwaukee Bucks, my friends knew I was staying home. Like it's Friday night, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was on board for Isaiah. I was on board for Marbury. Like most Knicks fans, the Larry Brown season was 05 and 06. I was a freshman in high school that year. I had just moved high schools in New Jersey. So at the time, I was like, I did not have many friends. I did not go out in the weekends. So I sat through that season and watched every single game. And to this day, I don't care what anyone says. There's never been a more dysfunctional Knicks season than 05, 06. It's actually funny. I saw that Channing Frye was interviewed on Knicks Fan TV.
Yeah, shout out to CP.
Shout out to CP. We had him on before it was a whole big page. He came on our podcast. He's good people for sure. One of the best doing it right now. Nothing but
Yeah.
love. I saw him come on CP's podcast, Knicks Fan TV, and he was talking about it. And he was like, that Larry Brown season was just a disaster. And he brought up something I thought like everybody like forgot about. The Knicks that year started the most starting lineups to this day in the history of the NBA. And he brought up how Channing Frye said, like,
there was
Larry
no
Brown,
stability.
He said they would do things like if they played in a certain hometown of a player, they would just start him because of that game. And I remember specifically because Nate was my favorite player. And we played the Sonics, and Nate started and played 40 minutes because he's from Seattle, and he played great. And then the next game we played somewhere else, and he got a DNP CD. So that season was a disaster. The Eddie Curry trade, I could not, from the moment we traded for Eddie Curry, I'll always admit when I'm wrong, and I'll tell you when I'm right, and it's honest. I hated the Eddie Curry trade from the moment we made it, was not a fan of him. But we held on to Isaiah for a little long, but when they fired him, I was on board with Donnie Walsh. This was a smart guy. This is a guy who's been involved in building infrastructure. He was a New Yorker. So I was on board with his plan. I was on board with cutting cap space for LeBron. I was on board with the Melo trade. I still am on. I still think the Melo trade gets.
I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know that we gave up like players like Gallinari. Shout out to Danilo Gallinari. He's playing for the Hawks now and that. But I think it was worth it in the end of the day. Though that 2010-11 with Felton, Stat, like I know you've had some really critical moments with Amari, but let's be honest, Amari was good that season, and you can't really totally blame Donnie Walsh for signing Amari at the time.
I don't at all. I was excited when Amari came in. For those who don't know, me and Amari got into a pretty highly publicized feud where we
meet me at the Needle.
We were supposed to meet up at the Space Needle. I went because I just moved back, but I was living in Seattle for a couple years. He never showed up, but it got a lot of press and Nick's social media and even beyond Nick's social media and all that. But
I saw it on that's how I sort of got introduced to you in that through I remember I was reading an article, and it was like this account called the Lee Knicks, and the Lennox or whatever.
And listen, I still consider myself an Amari fan at the end of the day because he came here, he brought some excitement. My problem was not with Amari. Like I have a problem with certain Knicks. Like I have a problem with Eddie Curry. I don't think he ever kept himself in shape. I had a problem with J.R. Smith and how he left, even though I was a big fan of his at one point. I thought, in the 2014 season when things were going wrong, he was untying shoes. He acted like he didn't care. He had his J.R. Smith did a lot to turn me away from him leaving the door. I'm not going to get mad at Amari because of injuries. Do I think looking back it was a less than ideal contract? Of course. But do I dislike Amari for having bad knees and taking? No, I don't.
That's not his fault. Yeah.
My problem with Amari and what he said to provoke it was, I came to the Knicks because of Dolan. And that's where I get rubbed the wrong way because I really have a problem with James Dolan and how he's run the team. And I've been like you. I mean, I've been alive longer than you, but Dolan for the past 20 years, that's my lifetime. That's the only team I like, by the way. I don't like football. I don't like baseball. I don't have a wide variety of teams. I have the Knicks. I've always had
Same.
Yeah. So, see, I think you're a lot like me in a lot of ways.
Very similar.
Which you should keep. I love the optimism. I just don't have it anymore. But I've dealt with Dolan a lot, and I hate the lack of transparency some of these players have, where it's like you came here because Phoenix didn't even want to give you the contract that we offered you. You wanted to come to New York, maybe the marketing, make yourself a bigger name. but it's when Dolan basically uses guys who he's given tons of money to over the years to prop him up. At that time, Dolan was he always has a bad name, but especially then, because it was right after Kyrie and Durant went to Brooklyn. Dolan was catching a lot of heat, and then Amari goes, I came to the Knicks because of James Dolan. And that's what I said, and I stand by it. I said, no, you didn't come to James Dolan. You came here because he was the only one willing to give you $100 million for you and your, to put it more PC, you and your bad knees. And he took offense. But the problem wasn't with Amari. I still don't have a problem with Amari as a Knick. I have a problem with him, like, basically saying that, oh, Dolan's great when he's giving me a ton of money, when fans who have kind of suffered from Dolan, to me, it's disrespectful to fans who have had to suffer with Dolan, who aren't getting money from Dolan, but are instead giving Dolan money. And it's that whole thing rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't have a problem with the Amari signing at the time. Hold on a sec. Here. Oh, this is my puppy. His name is Mamba.
Kobe.
He's got the Knicks collar.
Good boy. He's like
he's the Black Mamba. I got him.
Kobe.
I got him in February. It was like 2 weeks
right after the Kobe.
Shout out. Kobe, you want to go out? So, he's barking at it. But he's the Black Mamba. So, going back to your question, Donnie Walsh, and the Melo trade gets a lot of flack. We gave up a little too much, maybe, because Melo wanted to come here, but I don't think that's on Melo as much as it's on Knicks. But if you look through the past at teams, we didn't give up more for Melo than other teams give up to get superstar players on the market. We didn't give up more for Melo. I mean, Cleveland gave up Andrew Wiggins, the number one pick in the draft, to get Kevin Love. We gave up, Danilo Gallinari, a promising young player, but certainly wasn't the number one pick in the draft. Harden got a lot. Look at what Paul George gets traded for, even though that's a number of years later. Superstars get traded for a lot. To hold a grudge against Melo for costing us assets, I mean, to me, that's ridiculous. That's something I would never do. The problem isn't we gave up too much for Melo. The problem is, unlike other organizations, we never built around Melo. Besides 2013, which was just a magical, amazing season that unfortunately ended too soon. The reason, Luke, that I've kind of lost my hope, my luster when it comes to the Knicks.
Was Phil Jackson.
It was sort of Phil. I did not like Phil as a president. I thought he did a terrible job. So that was the start of it. What really took it off, though, was if you remember, one of the reasons Knicks fans were excited about Phil becoming the president back in 2014
was his coaching.
Well, no, it sort of, yes, but it was because he was getting Steve Mills took over. People did not want Steve Mills, and the other reason was that CAA kind of ran the Knicks behind the scenes.
Leon Rose and World Wild West.
Phil said, I'm going to come in. These guys are not going to have influence over us. There's articles. You could Google it where Phil is saying these things, and he's getting a lot of praise at the time. So Phil was bad. I didn't like it. It didn't work out, but at least you're trying something new. Yeah. My problem was after Phil, when Dolan was just like, screw it, I'm going to make Steve Mills the team president. And I'm like, what the?
David Fizdale.
And they tried to call it a culture change. And that was when me and my brother, who run this account together, that's when me and my brother are like, what are you doing? How is promoting Steve Mills to president a culture change in any way? And then they just, they said that we're rebuilding, but then the second they got a little wink and from big free agents, they trade Porzingis for cap space. The Porzingis trade was just like the icing on the cake. But I'm still a Knicks fan, and I still want to be a believer.
Of course.
I want to. They just have to prove it to me,
Yeah, and So coming like I feel that the Knicks did a great job building around Melo in the first 3 years. Like
Mhm.
you got that 2011-2012 season, they got, say what you want about D'Antoni and Jeremy. They had Jeremy Lin. That I know that was like they put no, Melo didn't play with him and he wasn't the right fit, but they did try to get some pieces around Melo. Tyson Chandler.
Tyson
Uh
was great. Love Tyson.
yeah, and then you had
JR was
what
great.
yeah. The Knicks were clearly doing something with Melo until I would have to say the 2013-14 season.
Oh God, that was one of the worst seasons ever. Just because 2013 seemed like the start of something, not the end of something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, like I thought, like, hey, I thought that they were gonna go like the roster. We knew what that roster wasn't coming back in that, but they were because they were a little old. They were old in that, of course, but I feel that they would have retooled and they would have
yeah,
got like
they got hard.
a similar type of situation and uh built back in that.
Yeah, well, I mean, they got rid of some of the older guys, which in retrospect was in poor faith. But if you recall, Shumpert actually had a very good playoffs in 2013. He had been
And
injured,
Copeland.
but yeah. But Shumpert had kind of been like promising but injured, and he had a good playoffs in 2013. He was one of the few Knicks who even played well against the Pacers. So we kind of expected Melo's going to be Melo, and Melo actually, statistically speaking, had his best season of his career in 2014. But we expected JR to still be the sixth man of the year, this great player. We expected Shumpert to take a jump. We drafted Hardaway that summer, who looked like he was a rookie, but a rookie ready right away to play in a role because he played 3 years in Michigan and was a good shooter and all that. Tyson, we still had Felton, and we signed Meta World Peace that summer, which I remember being excited about because there's been so many for like 15 years. There was
Shout out
basically
to Ron.
rumors that Ron Artest would come to the Knicks, and he finally did. So the 2014 season exactly was the only player who actually improved. And that's just people kill
And
Melo,
Tyson Chandler,
but
he
the
fell
numbers
off.
support it. Like how are you gonna blame Melo for losing when from 2013 to 2014, the only person besides Pablo Prigioni. So
Shout out to Previous
Pablo's one of
Flows.
my all-time favorite Knicks. So besides Pablo, Melo was the only one who was actually ready to take the jump. JR backtracked, Shumpert backtracked,
Tyson.
Tyson backtracked, Amari was finished. So you're right, though. I think the seeds were planted in 2012, and everybody wants to talk about Linsanity, and it's another one of the reasons people like to diminish Melo's legacy in New York. It's like, oh, he never
Yeah.
wanted to share the spotlight, which it's all garbage. Melo and Jeremy
Yeah.
Lin, maybe Melo didn't think it would last, but Melo was always supportive of it. But more importantly than that, Linsanity was finished. Teams were catching up to it. And what people don't remember is that after D'Antoni got fired, after Jeremy Lin got hurt and was out, that's when Mike Woodson took over the team. And
That which was amazing.
the Knicks finished the 2012 season 18-6, and Melo was averaging close to 40 a game. He was playing outstanding. And people always want to talk about Linsanity, but the fact is that the Knicks got better after Linsanity, after they fired D'Antoni, than they ever were during Linsanity. People just remember Linsanity because it was so unexpected and it was a phenomenon. But they lost to the Heat in the first round. But the seeds were planted for 2013 with that end of 2012 18-6 finish. Melo, Mike Woodson, the 2 point guard backcourt, Shumpert at the 3, 4 Melo, which was
Tyson.
dangerous, and then Tyson at the 5. That lineup, that was the recipe. We didn't follow it enough.
And the Melo clutch free against the Bulls. Like Mike Woodson
Yeah.
was
Great coach.
he was a great coach, and I'm so happy we brought him back in that. Say what I'm definitely happy that we brought him back, and
I love
I
Woody.
feel
Best Knicks coach we've had since Van Gundy. It's crazy, but it's true.
And D'Antoni, I'm not gonna go be like F D'Antoni in that,
Mm-hmm.
D'Antoni, I just didn't feel was not just he wasn't the right fit in that, and um we need D'Antoni needed to be gone in that, but that doesn't distract me. This is not saying like, oh, D'Antoni is very different from like a David Fizdale situation or something like that. Like we all knew Fizz needed to be gone.
Oh yeah, I never wanted Fizz. I was very upset when they hired Fizdale.
Fugazi Fizz.
Fugazi Fizz. That's who he is. Fugazi Fizz. Fugazi Fizz. You know how we love our nicknames over on our page. Roach, Fugazi Fizz. We got a couple more. I can't even remember off the top of my head. Anyway, so it's funny actually when they hired D'Antoni. You know who I actually wanted them to hire that year?
Tibbs, right?
Tibbs. You're absolutely right. So Tibbs at the time, most people, he wasn't well known. He was, if you're a basketball fan, he was well known, but not publicly. He was the assistant for a long time, including with the Knicks.
KG
Yeah,
and the
at the time
Celtics.
in '08, he was the lead. He was basically the taskmaster. Doc Rivers was the motivator. You know, Doc Rivers was great, and the players loved him. But the taskmaster, especially besides that defense, which was historically good for those '08 Celtics, it was Tibbs, and he was a Van Gundy assistant. And I love Van Gundy guys, and that's what I love about Tom Thibodeau. He's just Fizdale was the opposite. That's why we call him Fugazi Fizz. Fugazi means like there's no substance to it. It's phoniness. And that's what Fizdale is. He's good at talking to the media. He says, take that for data. He's on the jump talking with Rachel Nichols. He's the freaking groomsman.
He got the afro.
Yeah.
Now.
He's the groomsman at Dwayne Wade's wedding. LeBron is tweeting about him. That's David Fizdale's resume. It's all sideshow. There's no substance to it. And me and my brother were saying that at the time. It's why we called him Fugazi Fizz, because he had no, like, what did he do basketball-wise? All right, he was an assistant coach for the Heat. They won championships. Me or you could have won assistant. Me and you could have won championships.
Eric for that.
Yeah, like, what's their play? The Knicks tried to make it like Fizdale was this player development guy. Who did he develop in Miami? Mario
LeBron?
Chavez? LeBron? Did he help?
LeBron was already in his prime. That was prime LeBron.
So with Thibodeau, it's the virtual opposite. Thibodeau, Jeff Van Gundy, those guys, they don't care about the outside noise. They're watching tape. They care about the product on the floor. They are substance guys. And that's why I wanted Thibodeau to coach the Knicks back in '08. I wanted him again when we hired Hornacek, when he went to the Timberwolves in 2016.
I hated Hornacek.
Yeah, he had his moments. I think he got a bad rap. I think the trying to force him into the triangle was something that was a really bad decision. I think if the Knicks, like back in like in that 2017 season with Derrick Rose, if they would have done something like, you know, tried to pair Derrick Rose with another, like Hornacek was really good and was the runner-up coach of the year with the Suns when he had, you know, Goran Dragic, Eric Bledsoe, and Isaiah Thomas. His system was run by guards, and to try and force him into the triangle was a poor fit. I didn't think he was a great coach. I didn't think he was a terrible coach, though. But I wanted to hire Tibbs. Phil Jackson obviously didn't. But right now, that's my problem with Tibbs right now. I'm rooting for him hard. I've always been a fan of him, and I think that he has that mentality I like. My problem with Tibbs is that he's sort of a veteran coach on a young team. He has developed players in the past, so I'm not going to say he doesn't know how to develop talent. He does, but it's been a long time, and the Timberwolves had a young roster. He didn't exactly jive with the young players. And also what worries me is I want the Knicks to move into the 21st century, move into the 2020s. I want to see, you know, pace and space. I want to see them go up and down the court. I want to see them shoot more threes. And Thibodeau consistently, since he's been a head coach in the league, his teams have, you know, been among the league bottom with both pace and 3-pointers made and attempted per game.
Yeah, but he's still okay on the offensive end, which is like you saw
He's a basketball coach.
you saw that like he's you saw in like Chicago, Minnesota, they were okay in that, and I think that Tibbs he at least got that Minnesota team relevant. Minnesota like they're basically as big as a joke as us. Now they're not with D'Lo, Cat, and Edwards, but they at the time they were like they were a laughing stock of
Yeah,
the league. They were up until I'd have to say this past off season, and who knows
yeah,
if that doesn't work out, they're still a laughing stock.
yeah. They still
But
have a group.
yeah, but you but Tom Thibodeau he walked into that situation and he at least got that team to the playoffs. Karl Anthony Towns had his best season under him.
Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler, and
He's great,
it's
Jimmy.
just how it turned out with Mr. Glenn Taylor. But that it's very similar to James Dolan in that, and that look that can be concerning in that, but you can't really like even if we knew that our team was gonna be bad in that, I'd still hire a good coach in that. I'd much rather want to see Tom Thibodeau after a game yelling at RJ than Coach Fizz sliding into his DMs and that DMing LeBron James.
Yeah. I mean, I put it on my story the other day because it was the 1 year anniversary, and it's hilarious because the Knicks are losing to the Bucks by like 50, and
Jeez.
and it's like a screenshot of just like going to the commercial break at MSG, and Fizdale is like smiling and giving high fives to Bobby Portis, and I'm like, Jesus, what are we?
After he missed the air ball, he was like,
Yeah, so no, Tibbs is a bad. I won't ever talk bad about Tibbs. I think it was a poor fit. Like I thought it was a move that should have made years earlier. I didn't. If I was the one hiring, I wouldn't have made the hire. I'll say I'm not gonna slam it. Like I will slam Steve Mills or I slammed
David
Fizdale.
Fizz.
I think those were set up to fail. I won't slam Tom Thibodeau because I respect him so much as a coach. But if I was the president of the Knicks, is that who I would have hired? No, I wouldn't have made that hire.
Yeah, but you're at least okay with Tibbs.
I'm a fan. Not just okay. I'm rooting for the guy because he's a rootable guy. He's the kind of person that I like. He's just no nonsense. I focus. He's almost that's why him and Jimmy Butler get along so perfectly. Because Jimmy Butler, that's what he's like as a player. You saw in the bubble. I'm not cutting my hair. I'm not bringing my wife. Like this is a business trip, you know. And that's his personality. And me and my brother, we like to call those guys basketball guys. That's what they are. Just a basketball guy.
Basketball junkies.
Yeah, basketball junkies, basketball guys. Exactly correct.
Yeah, and also what you now going into more the like I know you've been pretty critical of him, but you've been pretty critical of a lot of people.
A lot
But
of people.
Mr. Steve Stout, what do
Oh,
you think about what he did? So today the Knicks released a jersey with the streetwear brand Kith in that.
yeah.
And what are your thoughts on that? Like I actually like the actually really off the court, like I think that's a nice jersey in that, and I
I
feel
saw.
like it attracts some like hip to the Knicks, and like Kith is a huge brand in that, and it brings like that hip vibe back to Knicks and that. But on the court, like, are you gonna see RJ Barrett rocking that? No, so does it really matter?
I saw in your profile. You're a rap fan, right?
Yeah.
Who are your favorite rappers?
Who's
Who
my
you like?
favorite rapper?
You rock with?
Well, I've been I've been a fan of J. Cole in that. I've been a J.
So
Cole guy. I used to like Kanye back in the day before he went all,
I'm with you, man. College Dropout, when I was your age, that came out in '04. I was literally 13. I listened to that so much the album broke. You kind of got a little bit of like an old school flavor. You're like me. I listened to hip hop like a decade before I was listening to it. If
Yeah,
that's
like I
like what
see
you
you.
kind of do.
I definitely have to say I'm an M guy.
Eminem, yeah, of course.
Oh, of course, yeah. And
So
so I've
yeah,
been
so my favorite rapper of all time is Cameron. You know
I
Cam?
know, Kill Cam,
So,
yeah.
so that's
I
my guy.
I
So
see
the
him at
best,
Nick. I was at Nick game in March, and he was there with Mr. Jim Jones and that,
yeah, the whole
and
Dipset.
them and
That
Dipset crew, yeah.
Well, I love the Diplomats. I love Dipset. So my favorite thing that Steve Stout did was they had the Dipset
The
collab. So I thought that was tight. Um, I think Steve Stout has made a ton of mistakes. It's like you're literally the Knicks branding guy.
and he was wearing bull
You're
shorts.
wearing bull shorts. You're basically firing the coach on ESPN. I mean, he has made it's such a simple to me it's like you had one job just to make the brand cool and you're wearing a different brand. So Steve Stout, it's not something I care enough about to get like upset over, and nor is the jerseys. I'm not a big like what jersey you wearing right now? I can't
I'm
tell.
wearing Ewing
Ewing, I knew
represent,
it was a player from that era because there's no black on it.
Yeah.
Shout out to Patrick Ewing, in my opinion, definitely the greatest Knick of all time.
True, and
Basically,
John Starks,
if it wasn't for those guys and like the thing, like if it wasn't for those guys, I wouldn't be the Knick fan I am today. Because like the reason I still am a fan and like can't drop it because I just have this like nostalgic, romanticized view of the Garden and the Knicks style of basketball. And never, not winning the championship because, there's a certain guy who played over in Chicago who was pretty good.
and Hakeem Olajuwon and that,
You know what kills
Reggie
me?
Miller,
What kills me? What kills me about the Olajuwon in the '94 finals and John Starks. It's hard for me to label my favorite Knick ever. I kind of go by eras. Like if I'm going with all of them, it's Starks, it's you. I mean, it's Ewing at the top. Ewing he has to be number one. But besides Ewing, there's Starks, there's Sprewell, there's Nate Robinson, and then
Clyde.
like those are the eras. Well, Clyde, of course, but I never got to see Clyde play. Clyde is the living legend. He could do no wrong in my eyes. I'm a Walt Frazier fanatic. But like if I'm going like early mid 90s, it's Starks. The late 90s, early 2000s, it's Sprewell. The mid to late 2000s, it was Nate Robinson. Like when I was in high school,
Steph or something.
Yeah, Steph is up there. I don't even think Steph ranks that high though. It's those four. It's Starks, Sprewell, Nate, and Melo.
And then it's Julius the Spin Randall.
Julius, the Spin Master, followed by Alfred.
Followed by Kevin Knox.
Alfred
Kevin Knox, the one who is playing Fortnite right now.
Yeah, literally, that's what he's doing. A couple, and I have tweets, literally. Actually, I think it came up today. You know that app, Time Hop, where you could look at like old stuff you post on social media?
Yeah.
So today is December 10th, and if you guys follow me and my brother, we have been obsessed, and I still am obsessed. My favorite player in the NBA. I'm sorry he's not a Knick. I am a Luka.
The walking bucket.
That's one of my favorites ever, Carmelo. So I love Luka. Luka's like my favorite from years back. Like back when he was playing for Real Madrid. And that's what kind of gets me so frustrated also to almost bring it back to present day, where we didn't make any big splashes this summer, which I thought was the smartest thing we've done in a long time. Because last year it was all about the short-term gain, and it was all about signing one-year deal dogs so we could be competitive.
90s Knicks.
90s Knicks mentality. If I hear that the dogs, I'm like, it was, after the Bucks game, I think I tweeted a picture of like golden retriever puppies, and I'm like, yeah, dogs, that's what you are tonight.
Yeah, like these guys think they're like DMX or something.
Yeah, dog. Yeah, that's what they think they're like. Anyway, like people are like, oh, we didn't make big signings. The Knicks do this. Like the Knicks are gonna suck. Like we've been tanking for 20 years. Like when is it? I'm like, dude, stop it. That narrative is false. The Knicks have not been tanking for 20 years. Being a bad team for 20 years does not mean you were tanking for 20 years. What the Knicks have tried to do is compete, and they've fallen short. And when they have tanked, it hasn't started in the beginning of the season. It's been after the All-Star break when it's too late. And actually, 3 years ago yesterday, 3 years ago yesterday on this December 9th, 2017. 17. I tweeted from our account at the Lennox at the _ LEK and
Follow him
ICKS.
on Instagram,
Give us
Twitter.
a follow, Instagram, Twitter, LEK and ICKS. And I tweeted, can the Knicks be real and quit the Fugazi decent start to the season and just tank for Luka Doncic? We could have done that for the past 2 years, but decided to keep a 500 record into the new year. And that was my problem. Like we ended up with Kevin Knox. The Knicks were a pick or two away from getting Luka. The Kings had the second pick in the draft that year. They obviously took Bagley because they're idiots, just like the Suns are idiots and the Hawks are idiots. But that's
not the Suns right now. The Suns
you're saying not the Hawks.
Chris Paul.
I think
not the Hawks and not the Suns right now.
They're idiots for passing up on Luka Doncic. I could go into that argument it's not Knicks related, so I won't do it. But it's like passing up on LeBron James in 2003. He's that special.
Darko Milicic.
Yeah. So the point I was trying to make is that like what the Knicks are doing right now, like we need to just, I don't like to call it tanking because it's not even that. It's a developmental year. Let the kids play. And if they're not good, which they won't be, then we end up with a high draft pick. And doing that is a lot different from like signing Marcus Morris and Bobby Portis and Elfrid Payton and Julius Randle and then it not working out. And you end up with the 8th pick in the draft or whatever we ended up with this year. 8.
Okay, Obi was good.
Fortunately turned into Obi, who I like. And
man, the curse stopped there.
I was not a fan of Leon Rose. I still don't trust him. But if you were to ask me right now, like, what is one thing? What's the one thing the Knicks can do to turn you back into a believer? Like, if you're asking me that, what can make me believe into Leon Rose? It'd be 2 things. It would be 1, don't do anything stupid. Don't make any of these short-sighted, typical Knick moves. Keep the development process. Start a lineup of Frank, RJ, give me like something like Frank, RJ, Knox, Obi Toppin, and Mitch. Give me that. If they win 20 games, they win 20 games. I don't care. Those are the guys I want to see play. Win or lose, at least it's real. We know if we have something good or if we have something like, hey, these young guys aren't so good. But we don't even know half. Like, Frank has been here for 3 years now. Do we even know if he's good or not? If we give it in 2017, it was Jared Jack and it was Ramon Sessions and then it was Moutier and then it was Elfrid Payton. And we've had this guy for 3 years. We've been bad for 3 years and we've never just let him go and do his thing. So what I want to see right now is let the young players play and get a top pick. If you give me this core right now and draft Jalen Suggs, who I have a man crush on. Watch him closely. He's on Gonzaga. He's incredible. Or Cade Cunningham. Give this core right now with Jalen Suggs or Cade Cunningham, and you'll turn me into a believer. But that's going to be, a year-long process.
Well, I think what the Knicks need to do is, I don't think that they should go. I think that what they need to. I think that at that time with the Knicks and that, I think it would be better if we were stuck to our plan. And that I know, and the lottery isn't guaranteed. The lottery is basically a rigged thing in that. And we tried it before with Zion and that, and it didn't work.
You got RJ though.
And yeah, we got RJ in that, but we could have. What I feel the Knicks need to do is they need to take that win mentality, but they need to build the right way. They need to look, I think that they should stick with the youth in that at this point, and they should go. I was actually thinking this offseason. I thought that we may. I know this is gonna spark a lot of something, but I thought that maybe we should go after Westbrook just because I just want that team. I want our team to get right back to like being relevant in that, but that didn't happen in that. And I also was thinking about Chris Paul and that, like get us a little jump start to the rebuild that, and I really want him, and that didn't happen. If I'm the Knicks, what I'm gonna do is I feel that what I think that the Knicks need to do is they need to either at this point, I think they need to just play the young guys, trade Randall
Oh yeah,
for like a player like Buddy Hield. I
we could
feel
do it. It'd be great.
if you can trade Randall Frank in a 2022 first
I would trade a
from
Mavs
Dallas,
first.
yeah,
Dallas
in the
first.
Dallas pick, then yeah, so you do that, you get Buddy Hield. I know Buddy Hield isn't he's 27 now, but I think he'd be a great
So he played 4 years of college, unlike some of these other guys. So he's older. But yeah, go on.
But I think he'd be a great compliment to the young guys, and he fits our team in that. And then from there, that can give us a little something. Buddy Hield, mind you, he dropped like 20 some. He dropped 20 last year. That can give us a little something with you play Obi, and Tibbs. The biggest weakness in Obi's game is defense. You have the best defensive coach in Tom Thibodeau.
And you got Mitch.
Yeah, and you got Mitch. And
well, think of it like we were just talking about with Melo. And when we played Melo at the 4, what was his biggest weakness?
Like defense, and it worked out. Yeah.
Why did it work out? Because we had a defensive coach in Woody, and we had Tyson Chandler right there. So, that with Obi, it's sort of the same. And actually, we saw the same thing with another Knick who was not good with the Knicks, but he went on to have future success, and it was Zach Randolph.
Yeah, and I was about to say Z-Bo.
When Z-Bo was here, we tried to pair him with Eddie Curry, and it was a disaster because they both clogged the paint. They're both fatties. And they both didn't play defense. But when you moved Z-Bo, who was actually a nice player,
Memphis,
utilized poorly. It's sort of like Julius Randle, who I actually think is a solid player. He's just utilized poorly. But when Z-Bo moved over to Memphis, they paired him with Marc Gasol, who was one of the best defensive centers in the league. So when you have a 4 like Obi, who's, his biggest weakness is going to be on defense, you can make up for that if you have a Mitch Robinson, if he pans out to be what, Knicks fans hope he will be.
Yeah, and what I feel that the Knicks need to do is they need to get Randall out, and I think Buddy Hield is a shooter, and we desperately need like a small forward in that. I think that he's like Buddy Hield's a shooting guard, but I think he can play the small forward position.
Yeah, if not him, then RJ. Those two complement each other.
Yeah, and one thing for years, there are 2 things we need. Since I'd have to say, was Melo small forward? Melo, wasn't he in like Melo? Wasn't he a small forward in that?
Right? He played the 4 with the 2013 Knicks.
But
he oscillated between the 3 and the 4. But in 2013, he played the 4.
Yeah, like we haven't really had a good small forward. I'd have to say, we've been missing that since Melo, I guess. And what I feel at the point, and we are desperately missing a point guard. We haven't had that since that has actually turned out into win. No disrespect to Steph, but Walt Clyde Frazier.
I agree with you. No disrespect.
And where's Walt Clyde Frazier now? He's he's 75. Walt Frazier now, like.
Absolutely.
That basically sums up how badly we need a point guard. Our last point guard is like announcer now, and he's like
Well, think about it. Let's
75 now.
say
Yeah.
let's say the Knicks do make that Buddy Hield trade, which I think would be great for us. And then let's say we don't have a good season, we wind up in the lottery, we end up with, let's say, Jalen Suggs, who I like a lot personally. And then next year you got a lineup of your point guard, franchise point guard, box office bona fide, reminds me of a young Jason Kidd, Jalen Suggs. And then on the wings you got Buddy Hield, a shooter, and RJ, who's kind of like a attacker distributor. At the 4, you got Obi, scorer, shooter, athletic freak. And at the 5, you got your rim protector and Mitch. Give me that young lineup in 3, 4, 5 years right now. If you develop them properly, it'll be,
Who knows
something.
that team? That who knows? I think that with like a Buddy Hield, I think that it would be good for a rebuild. And I think we need a winning culture in New York in that. And I think Buddy Hield brings that. And I'm not gonna. I think that what we should do is we should do a little of like the developing that. We should develop in that. I think I'd look at a team like Memphis as an example, or how Phoenix did it last season. That uh, hate on Phoenix all you want, but they got it right last season. They
No, they
played
were.
they played the young guys, or like I think we need to look at a team like Memphis, and they complement John Morant with the right pieces.
Totally.
And
Totally.
I feel if you add I'd much rather be in like as like in that play-in tournament and competing for the playoffs in that than in the lottery. I'd love to have the first pick in that, but the lottery is basically like it's a lottery basically. You don't know if it's gonna go to us. We could be 10th, 9th seed in the play-in tournament this year, but we could also have a first pick up and coming. So
Yeah.
I feel that we need. I would say um, tanking in that. We need to go. We need to develop in that, but we need to hold ourselves to a standard of a winning culture, and if the team isn't improving that, you have to. I feel you have to give up on the plan of the rebuild that because it's not working out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel then so you I think you add a Buddy Hield in that, and then I feel that it gives you something, and it gives you at least a competitive team that's developing that. And then I feel, who knows, maybe it could be like in the East, and that you're easily a 9-10 seed with Buddy Hield and Obi Toppin and RJ Barrett and them.
Point
And
guard
I've
would still help,
yeah.
but yeah.
If a team like the Kings were like that good last season that in the West, then in the East, like who knows, maybe we somewhat somehow make the playoffs somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to get all delusional here, but what I'm trying to say in that is I think that we need to take the route of a winning culture in that, and we can't just leave our players tanking that. I'd much rather have some actual progress. Um, I look at progress as if you're when it comes to young guys and that, I look at as did you get more wins than you did last year?
Totally.
And I'm not saying just like from 19 wins to 20 wins. Pretend we went from like pretend we go to like 30 wins. I see that as progress in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that's what we need to do. We can't measure. We can't have this losing culture too much. We need to give the fans what they want, and what they want is a winning culture. And I think you get Buddy Hield in there. You put Obi Toppin in the right spots in that, and you complement Obi Toppin, RJ Barrett, and Mitchell Robinson, and I think you start to, and then there you go. You start to win some games in that, and that team definitely could in the weak East definitely are gonna be a 9-10 seed in that play-in tournament.
Look, I mean, just look at the Atlantic. Every team besides the Knicks, it's Toronto, Boston, the Nets, and Sixers.
I'm talking. I'm talking in the bottom of the Eastern
Yeah, no,
Conference.
you're right. You're right.
I'm I'm not
You're
trying to
right.
be delusional here, but you have Buddy Hield. You might have a shot at being at least a solid A seed in that, and you at least see some progress with the team in that. And I'd much rather have that than tanking every year.
Oh
I
yeah.
know I'd love Cade Cunningham, of course I would, but like what you're going back to earlier in that is I feel that a team like you were like tank for Luca in that. I really felt that that team could have. I would have. That team was young. It wasn't like. It wasn't like the team the year before in that. And that team definitely seemed like they were good until KP started slowing down. And I think if KP kept playing the way he was and it was working out in December and that, then I think they would have made the playoffs in that. And
They also
I
had a weak
think,
schedule that year up until the new year. They had the most home
yeah,
games in the league by a large margin.
yeah, and they struggled on the road when they did.
Yeah, they were
But
bad on the road that year.
I know they were, but I
But
think that
KP was
they,
outstanding. It was exciting. I mean,
but I think that I'd much rather have seen the team like take some steps in that and improving. Like even if you didn't make the playoffs in that, at least be like a 9-10 seed. If you get Luka Doncic, amazing, great. But that shouldn't be the goal just to tank in that. That shouldn't
I
be the
I
goal.
I I, I agree with what you're saying, like completely. I don't think a team's goal ever should be tank. We're going to go in this season with the hope that we're going to get the number one pick in the draft. What
No.
I'm saying is that whatever you do, especially when you're a young developing team and you're not chasing a championship, whatever you need to do needs to be real. And by real, I mean if you have a lineup, let's just say with the guys we have now, let's say you got Frank, RJ, Knox, Obi, and Mitch. Whether look at the Nets, for instance. The Nets the year before KD and Kyrie came,
Elo. Yeah.
yeah, they were supposed to be bad that year, but they overexceeded and they made the playoffs. So let's say you have that five starters and RJ takes an immense jump and he's an all-star and Obi wins rookie of the year and Mitch is averaging 12, 11, 3 blocks a game. Frank takes a step. Do I want would that be amazing? Absolutely. But if you make progress with that team, it's real. But let's say you like last summer, what drove me crazy was that they were not just trying to win, they were doing it not with the right guys. They were doing it with a lineup of Elfrid Payton and Julius Randle and Marcus Morris and Bobby Portis and all of these guys who were just essentially there to be 1 year mercenaries. And my whole point is like, I would rather win 20 with Frank, RJ, Knox, Obi, Mitch than I would win 30 with Elfrid, Wayne Ellington, RJ, Julius Randle, Bobby Portis. Because the 20 wins would be real and succeed or fail. Those guys are out there and those guys are learning. So would I love to see like Tibbs coach the Knicks this year and they can develop a defensive identity and Frank is playing well and RJ takes a huge step and Obi's rookie of the year and Mitch is a machine in the paint 100%. That would be the goal. But I wouldn't that's why I don't like if you're starting Elfrid Payton at the point, to me it's like what's the point, you know? You're chasing
Yeah.
30 wins. Like put Frank out
That's
there,
different. Yeah.
and if he overachieves and we make the playoffs, that's amazing. But if you fail with those guys, at least you're seeing the players you want to see. And then worst case scenario, you have this draft pick. And that to me is how good teams build. It's like they're not necessarily trying to tank, except for the
Like
Philadelphia 76ers. That was different.
Philly was awful in that, that's not smart in that. I know that it paid off at the end of the day, but that's stupid.
I agree.
I would have that's just wrong for the fans. That's wrong for the that's that's losing culture 101.
I
That's
agree.
like that cannot happen. If that is happening, I will I, I will be coming on here flipping out every night, you know.
Yeah,
I'd be and
people
I definitely
missed. Sam Hinkie missed a lot. I mean, Nerlens Noel's now Nick was a miss. Michael Carter Williams was a miss. Jahlil Okafor was a massive miss, and that's another. Not to give myself credit, I was one of the few Knicks fans who really liked Porzingis and really hated Jahlil Okafor. To me, Jahlil Okafor had Eddie Curry written all over him, and Eddie Curry was my least favorite Knick of all time. So,
yeah, well, yeah, that's a different thing, but yeah, what the Knicks need to do is they need to look at teams like Brooklyn, Phoenix, Memphis.
OKC,
Also, yeah, OKC that's a little different of a thing, but
great culture.
but it's the way they took it from one era to another era is definitely great in that. I think that's what the Knicks need to model after, and they need to have that winning culture in that. And no, I don't care if there are like Taj Gibson, Julius Randle out there, but but what the Knicks need to do is I feel they need to start the young guys, but at the same exact time we should still be trying to win that season. And I think that you try to go after some young guys that you know can help the team out, and
Like a Buddy
you
Hield.
don't, yeah, and then you go from there, and who knows, maybe you have something. If we get by heel, maybe you have something and that team could, I don't know, Buddy Hield's gonna be here like totally long term in that, but he could sort of like a jump start to the
Yeah.
rebuild.
No,
And
I would if Buddy Hield was on the market, I would and he might be like that mock trade that man you just came up with the what was it
first
Frank Randall
Dallas,
and a first round from Dallas. I'd be 100. Yeah, even if they wanted Knox in that deal, I would throw it in because
oh,
I think Buddy.
because I don't see Knox with any potential, to be honest with you. I don't.
I think it's hard to find a guy who's that athletic, tall, and can shoot. Those are rare qualities. But I didn't like the Knox pick. If I don't know if you were
I
following.
want Porter. Yeah,
Yeah. So me and my brother.
Porter, and now I would have taken Shy in that. I feel
Yeah.
that he was good, and for the Frank pick, I'm still at the time I was sort of on Frank in that, though I want DSJ.
I wanted
Um
Monk. I love
um
Monk.
yeah, Monk is also, that's a good player. Maybe they should go after.
I would 100% love if they went after Monk because to
And
me it's like Charlotte has all these guards, you know. They have Devontae
Devontae
Graham, they
Graham,
have
Terry
LaMelo
Rozier.
now, Terry Rozier. That's where I was floating around, and I thought it would have been a good idea for the Knicks to do to get on the phone with Charlotte and work something out. You know,
With
Julius Randle for
Devontae
Terry,
Graham.
not for Devontae. They're not trading Devontae. He's on the
I
rise.
know.
He's their guy.
Yeah.
But if you
But
trade
Terry
for
Rozier.
Terry Rozier, I mean, Terry Rozier would be the Knicks' best point guard on the roster instantly. And although I do have a problem kind of with these win now bad contract guys, you're already giving up a bad contract in Randall, so it kind of offsets. But Rozier is at least a little bit younger. And the good thing about getting a veteran point guard compared to a Julius Randall is that the point guard makes everybody else better. So you get a Rozier, and he sort of becomes the quarterback of the team. That makes RJ better. That makes if you a lot of Obi has a lot of comparisons I've seen, and I think they're good comparisons to three players in particular, the young versions.
Amari with no
Kenyon
injuries.
Kenyon Martin, Amari, and Blake Griffin. But if you look at those three guys and their success earlier in their careers, Kenyon Martin with the Nets, who do you have?
He had Jason Kidd, Kerry Kittles.
Amari, point guard, Jason Kidd. Amari with the Suns. Who do you have?
Steve Nash and
Nash. Oh, give me the finger. Blake Griffin with
the
who do you have?
DeAndre Jordan, Lob City, Chris Paul.
Chris Paul, exactly. So you need a point guard to help make these guys better. The Knicks don't have that right now. if it would be great if Dennis Smith Jr. could do that, but I mean, he was so bad last year. I think it's crazy to try and like rely on him for anything because he was
Yeah,
just.
and well, I feel that Rozier, what Rozier can bring is, I think that player is a guy that can make the young players better than that, and he's more of like a young player type guy. Like I don't consider him like a veteran toy. He's like, you can tell he's like he doesn't mind playing with the young guys, and you can tell that he definitely complimented those players in Charlotte this season. You saw Devontae
Awesome.
Graham take a huge leap in that. You saw PJ Washington. No, the Hornets don't have a crazy big young core, and they well now they do with Melo Ball. Shout out to Jordan. Jordan's getting some moves
Yeah,
out there,
yeah.
and then
Except I don't know what he was thinking with Gordon Hayward. That's a lot of money for Gordon Hayward, man.
um yeah, but if you're Charlotte, Charlotte doesn't get free agents, mind you. They're
That's a
not
good
like
point.
yeah, and I think hey, Gordon Hayward is a great like shooter, and he can. I think Gordon Hayward is the type of guy that um could complement the young players, and I sort of wanted him in free agency. I thought that he would be a good small forward that would complement the young players. Like it's not all about contracts and that. If you as long as you're making the team sort of better in that and complimenting the young guys, I don't have a problem if you're taking on a big contract in that. And look, lots of rebuilding teams take on big contracts in that.
It's to me it would have been a little much to give up like 80+ million on Hayward because then you're sort of falling into that trap of the Knicks when I was your age, where they were not only terrible, but they also were overpaid. And you don't want to be both. You know, and to add on to everything, they didn't have draft picks. I mean, that's what was so bad about the Eddie Curry trade. He was overpaid and you cost you 2 picks in the top 10. Like that can't happen. That's why I'm so against giving up draft picks. But like the thing with Hayward, he's already 30 years old, and you get him on like
The injuries.
the Knicks more than anything. Nothing will work in New York unless they have their franchise point guard. We just spoke about it. The last really great point guard the only really great point guard the Knicks have ever had is Walt Clyde Frazier, and you got these young pieces, and they're nice. But they're pieces. Like they're not going to thrive on their own. They need their quarterback. And if you give $80 million to Gordon Hayward, you might push for the 8th seed, but you're going in that same. You push for the 8th seed, you don't get it, maybe you do get it, but if you don't, you're drafting again in that 8 to 14 range. You're not going to find that guy lying around. Like I'm all for adding a Gordon Hayward. Let's say the Knicks already had a franchise point guard, and they were young, but they needed 1 or 2 pieces just to take the next step. Then I'm like, all right, you could get a little cute with your cap space, but the young core is not set yet. So to me, it's like, just let him play. And I think you just got to be able to find that guy in the draft because you're not going to find him another place.
Yeah. Yeah, but if he's a good compliment, that I felt that he would, and that, and also I feel when it comes to Gordon Hayward and that, I feel that he need with Gordon Hayward, what they need to do, like I feel that he has some value in that Gordon Hayward. Like you saw teams like you saw teams where you've seen teams have been interested in him for a while, and you saw a team like Indiana was interested in him. You saw teams like Atlanta, I think, was sort of interested in him. You saw Charlotte. You saw us. We were like, yeah, and I think it's gonna. I think they'll try to find some way to work it out. And though LeVar's a nutcase, let's be honest here, he is. But Lamelo Ball, I think LeVar's took a step back in that. I think it's very different in that.
You could tell he signed with Puma. That was a big blow to LeVar. He didn't sign with
Yeah,
big
VVV.
It's funny now, actually, because you look at it like when he signed with Puma, it's like a slap in the face to LeVar and BBB. and now he's on Jordan's team. So he's got Jordan Brand and Jordan on one side, and he's got LeVar and BBB on the other side, and they probably both want him to wear their sneakers, but he's with Puma. He's got a lot of young guys. They got Knox, they got RJ.
And they got J. Cole with his new signature and that, you know.
And they got the OG. They got Clyde Frazier, legendary, the Clyde Pumas. That was him.
And they got like, you know, they got J. Cole in that, you know, they have him doing his own things and that. And yeah, I feel that was sort of a slap in the face to LeVar and that. And yeah. Yeah, also what we're gonna wrap it up here. Also, one thing. What's your starting lineup? So tomorrow night is the preseason. What's your starting lineup against the Pistons?
I think, you know, I just said I would start out with Frank, with RJ, with the two forwards, Obi and Knox more in the 3, Obi in the 4, and Mitch at center. And I would try Frank out at point guard and see how it does. I think Dennis Smith is more of a point guard than Frank. Like, he's the guy who could have the ball in his hands more, who could run pick and rolls, draw on the defense, and really help. But to me, Dennis did not do enough at all to show that he's worthy of any trust or faith in him. So I would have Dennis in a bench role. I'd keep an eye out on him. If Frank isn't adjusting the point guard, great, and Dennis is improved, then I would move Dennis in there, and I'd probably actually kick Knox out of the starting lineup, move Frank to the 2, RJ to the 3, Obi to the 4, and Mitch to the 5. But if I'm Thibodeau and I'm coaching tomorrow night, mind you, obviously I'm not watching these players in training camp, but I would start Frank, RJ, Knox, Obi, and Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on. Follow the Lee Knicks on Instagram.
Follow the Lennox on Instagram. So that is THE.
Yeah, Lennox.
At THELEKNICKS. It's like my last name, but with the
La Resistance.
Also, real quick. Sorry, just to do one more plug. So, like I said, I started the Lennox with my brother, because he's actually like in radio and podcasting and all that. That's his job. That's
not to Jake Luna.
This is sort of a side thing for me. I just do the social media and I love it. It's fun, but it's not like my job. It's not what I do. But Jake, my brother, has a new podcast for college basketball. It's great. If you're a college basketball fan, it's all focused on that. And that is the One and Done. So at THEONEANDDONES. So at the One and Dones with the 1-0 ONE instead of the number 1.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on.
Keep doing your thing, my man. I think it's awesome what you're doing.
Yeah, you keep doing your thing. Who knows? Yeah. I might have to come on to your show soon.
No, me and my brother, it's more of we started with a podcast because he's doing other things now. I was living in the West Coast. It's more just social media now. But now that I'm back in the East Coast, we're gonna start going live more. So you're always welcome.
Yeah, I gotta come on. Yeah.
And this was fun, man. I'm always down. Just
always.
Literally, don't even give me like a game plan. Like, let's just talk Knicks, old school Knicks, new school Knicks. It doesn't matter. But I think it's awesome what you're doing. I think it's awesome. Your Knicks knowledge at 13, it's incredible. I mean, most kids I talk to follow the NBA couldn't tell me who, Jason Kidd is or something like that. So I think it's awesome what you're doing, and keep it up. And I think sky's the limit, dude.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on if you made here,
Yep. La Resistance.
Bye. Peace.